Good morning, ma'am. I am Chojol R. Lopez, and I will be going to discuss all about Filipino-American relations. The Filipino-American relations begin in 1898, where the United States declared war against Spain on April 25, 1898. This is the start of the hostilities. This declaration came after the explosion of the USS Maine battleship in Havana, Cuba on February 15, 1898, which heightened tensions between the two nations. The war between the United States and Spain lasted less than 4 months, spanning from April to August 1898. This conflict had far-reaching consequences, leading to significant changes in geopolitical landscape. One of the important moments in this period was the signing of the Treaty of Paris on December 10, 1898. Um, this treaty formalized the transfer of sovereignty over several territories, including the Philippines, from Spain to the United States. The Treaty of Paris solidified the United States' influence in the Pacific region and marked the beginning of a new chapter in the relationship between the Philippines and the United States. The signing of the Treaty of Paris laid the foundation for the establishment of Filipino-American relations that shaped the course of history for both nations. This diplomatic milestone set the stage for future interactions and collaborations between the Philippines and the United States, defining the trajectory of their bilateral relations in the year to come. Okay, next is the start of Filipino-American relation is tied to the historical context surrounding Emilio Aguinaldo and the Filipino revolutionaries during the 19th century. At that time, Aguinaldo, a prominent figure in the Philippine Revolution against Spanish colonial rule, found himself in exile in Hong Kong under the Biak-na-Bato Agreement. The Biak-na-Bato Agreement was a significant development in the revolution. It outlined that Spain would provide an indemnity of 800,000 to the Filipino revolutionaries. However, when Aguinaldo left for Hong Kong, he only received half of the agreed indemnity amount, which was 400,000. Despite the Spaniards paying 200,000 to the revolutionaries, this amount fell short of meeting their demands. The dissatisfaction among the revolutionaries due to the incomplete payment contributed to the escalating tensions and ultimately fueled the desire for independence among the Filipino people. This period mark a juncture in Filipino history that highlights the struggles and aspiration for the revolutionaries for independence from Spanish colonial rule. The events surrounding the Biak-na-Bato Agreement and the subsequent action of the revolutionaries laid the groundwork for the eventual Filipino-American relations that would unfold in the years to come. Next is the reading number 34, the Pact of Biak-na-Bato. So the Pact of Biak-na-Bato was an important agreement that signed on December 14, 1897 between the Spanish colonial government. It represented by General Fernando Primo de Vera and the Filipino revolutionary leader, which is Emilio Aguinaldo. This Pact of Biak-na-Bato aimed to end the Philippine Revolution and establish a truce between the two parties. The agreement granted amnesty and monetary indemnity to the Filipino revolutionaries. Emilio Aguinaldo and his fellow revolutionaries were exiled to Hong Kong. Spain agreed to pay an indemnity of 800,000 Mexican pesos to the revolutionaries in three installments. The Pact of Biak-na-Bato stipulated the surrender of arms by the revolutionaries and the establishment of an autonomous government in the Philippines. Despite the initial payments, the full indemnity was not paid, leading to to continuous tension leading to the continuous tension between the revolutionaries and the Spanish forces. The Pact of Biak-na-Bato was an important or significant event in Philippine history as it marked a temporary truce in the revolution, and it highlights the complex dynamics between the Filipino revolutionaries and the Spanish colonial authorities during that period. So next is the reading number 35, which is the proclamation of the Hong Kong Committee marking the end of the Filipino-Spanish understanding and expressing support to the Americans. This proclamation of the Hong Kong Committee marked the conclusion of the Filipino-Spanish understanding and expressed support for the Americans. This proclamation signified a shift in alliances and perspective during a crucial historical period. The document likely reflects the evolving dynamics between the Filipino revolutionaries, the Spanish colonial authorities, and the emerging involvement of the United States in the Philippines. The content of the proclamation likely encapsulates the sentiments, intention, and strategic consideration of the Filipino representative during the key juncture in the Filipino history. And next is the America's true intention, the Filipino struggle for recognition. The events outlined indicate a significant shift in the dynamic of Filipino struggles, recognition, and independence. Emilio Aguinaldo's return to the Philippines on May 19, 1898 marked an important moment in the fight for independence. Aguinaldo called for the Filipinos people to join forces with Americans against the Spaniards, showcase a strategic alliance. The Filipinos' victory in the Battle of Alapang and Cavite demonstrated their strength and determination. The successful surrounding of Manila by the revolutionaries, trapping the Spaniards in Intramuros, symbolized a key moment in the conflict for Filipino independence. Next is the America's True Intention, the Filipino Struggle for Recognition. Reading number 36, Proclamation of Emilio Aguinaldo, urging the Filipinos to unite and fight for the vindication of the country, dated May 21, 1898. The proclamation issued by Emilio Aguinaldo on May 21, 1898, urges the Filipino people to unite and fight for the vindication of their country. Aguinaldo calls upon the Filipinos to come together in solidarity and join the struggle for the recognition and liberation of their nation. The proclamation emphasizes the importance of unity and collective action in the fight against oppression for the ultimate goal of achieving recognition and independence for the Philippines. Governor General Basilio Agustin's refusal of Emilio Aguinaldo's offer for an honorable surrender signifies the resistance faced by the Filipino forces in the pursuit of independence. This rejection highlights the challenges and opposition encountered by the Filipino revolutionaries from the Spanish colonial authorities. Emilio Aguinaldo's establishment of a temporary dictatorial government on May 24, 1898, which future plans to establish a republic showcases the strategic governance decision made by the Filipino leadership to lay the groundwork for self-governance and sovereignty. Aguinaldo's proclamation of Philippine independence on June 12, 1898, is a momentous occasion in Filipino history, symbolizing the formal declaration of freedom from Spanish colonial rule and asserting the nation's right to self-determination. The Battle of Manila, August 18, 1898, culminating the Battle of Manila on August 18, 1898, culminating in the surrender of the Spanish forces and the entry of American troops into the city, represents a significant military victory for the Filipino revolutionaries. This event marks an important turning point in the struggle for recognition and independence, as it signifies the weakening of Spanish colonial control and the beginning of a new chapter in Filipino history under American influence. And next is the Constantino statements into the impact of American propaganda on Filipino perception of their history and struggle for recognition. First is the acceptance of American propaganda, which is the Filipinos have internalized American propaganda, believing in the altruistic reason for American presence, such as education, while also accepting the narrative that Filipino were not ready for self-government, justifying American dominance. Second is the consequence of propaganda. This acceptance has resulted in a lack of deep exploration into the lives and challenges faced by Filipino leaders who continued the resistance post Aguinaldo's capture until 1906. The failure to investigate these leaders' stories has hindered a comprehensive understanding of their contributions to the struggle for independence. Third is the distorted perception. The portrayal of these Filipino leaders as bandits and thieves, influenced by American narratives, has this is shaped how Filipino and the American public view them. This distortion has obscured the true rules and sacrifices of these leaders, painting them in a negative light contrary to their actual heroic efforts in the fight for recognition and independence. Okay, for the next slide. Reading number 37, President William McKinley's speech to Methodist ministers about the U.S. acquisition of the Philippines, November 1899. So, President McKinley's speech to Methodist ministers in November 1899 likely discusses the United States acquisition of the Philippines. This speech is significant as it provides insight into McKinley's perspective on the U.S. involvement in the Philippines, shedding light on the rationale and motivations behind the American presence in the region. The speech may touch upon themes such as colonial expansion, American interest in the Philippines, and the administration's justification for acquiring the islands. Next is the reading number 38, excerpts from Conflict of Two Interests and McKinley and Divine Providence from Origin of a Myth by Renato Constantino. Renato Constantino work, Origin of a Myth, likely discuss into the conflicting interests at play during the period of U.S. acquisition of the Philippines. The excerpts Conflict of Two Interests and McKinley and Divine Providence may explore the complex dynamics between American interest, Filipino aspiration for recognition and independence, and the role of divine providence in shaping historical events. Constantino's analysis may challenge conventional narratives surrounding McKinley's actions and the mythologizing of American intentions in the Philippines, providing a critical perspective on the historical context and implications of U.S. involvement in the region. And next is the reading number 39, Felipe Agoncillo's Memorial to the Senate of the United States in protest of the action United States ignoring the independence aspiration of the Filipinos. Felipe Agoncillo's Memorial to the Senate of the United States likely serves as a formal document expressing protest against the United States disregarded for the independence aspirations of the Filipinos. In this memorial, Agoncillo, a prominent Filipino figure, would have articulated the grievances and objections of the Filipino people regarding the actions of the United States in relation to their desire for independence. The memorial likely outlines the Filipino perspective on the situation, emphasizing the importance of recognizing and respecting the aspiration of the Filipino population for self-determination and independence. Agoncillo protest likely addresses the failure of the United States to acknowledge and support the Filipino quest for sovereignty. It highlights the disconnect between American actions and the genuine desires of the Filipino people for recognition and autonomy. Agoncillo's memorial to the Senate of the United States would likely serve as a formal and impassioned document for the United States to reconsider its stance and to honor the independence aspirations of the Filipino population. Okay, next is the Treaty of Paris and the outbreak of hostilities between Filipinos and Americans in 1898 are important which is important to understand the context of America's true intention and the Filipino struggle for recognition. First is the Treaty of Paris vote. The Treaty of Paris, which involved the transfer of territories including the Philippines from Spain to the United States, was scheduled for a vote on February 6, 1898. The treaty required a two-thirds majority for ratification. However, the Republican Party, which is in power, failed to secure the necessary majority for the treaty's approval. Second is the hostilities break out. On February 4, 1898, hostilities erupted between Filipinos and Americans. Reports suggested that the conflict was initiated by the Filipinos, marking the beginning of tensions between the two groups. And third is the ratification of the treaty. The inability of the Republican Party to secure the required majority initially led to uncertainty regarding the fate of the treaty. However, following the outbreak of hostilities and amidst the escalating situation, the treaty was ultimately ratified with 61 votes in favor and 27 against, surpassing the two-thirds majority needed for approval. So these events demonstrate the complex interplay for political dynamics, military actions, and international relations during this period. It shapes the course of American involvement in the Philippines and the challenges faced by the Filipino people in their struggle for recognition and independence. Richard Brinsley Sheridan's preface to his book, The Filipino Martyrs, A Story of the Crime of February 4, 1899. It discusses his initial positive views of American policy in the Philippines, his discovery of his misrepresented nature of the Filipinos, and his decision to stay in the Philippines to gather information and write about the events. Sheridan emphasizes the need for transparency and the involvement of the American people in understanding the situation in the Philippines. The preface sets the stage for his book, reflecting his transformation from an enthusiastic supporter to a critical observer of American actions in the Philippines. Is the bitter end. The Filipino-American War began on February 4, 1899 and ended on July 2, 1902. During this period, Apolinario Mabini urged Filipinos to fight for their homes and country, while the Paterno cabinet sought peace with the Americans, opposed by Juan Luna, who was later killed by his own people. Aguinaldo disbanded the Republic on November 13, 1899, went into hiding, and was captured by General Frederick von Stoon on March 23, 1899. Aguinaldo then swore allegiance to the United States on April 1, 1899. The war officially concluded on July 2, 1902, with an amnesty proclamation granting pardon to Filipinos involved in hostilities against the Americans. Next is the reading number 41, an interview of Antonio Luna with La Independencia. This interview conducted with Antonio Luna, a prominent Filipino military leader and revolutionary figure by La Independencia, a significant newspaper during the Philippine Revolution against Spanish colonial rule and the subsequent Philippine-American War. Antonio Luna played an important role in the Philippine struggle for independence, known for his military expertise, leadership, and unwavering dedication to the cause of Filipino sovereignty. Luna's interaction with the press, especially with the publication like La Independencia, known for its role in disseminating nationalist sentiments and rallying support for the revolution, could offer a glimpse into the mindset and strategies of one of the key figures in the fight for Philippine independence. And next is reading number 42, which is Gregorio del Pilar's death from an account of an eyewitness, Richard Henry Little. It likely explores the circumstances surrounding the death of Gregorio del Pilar, a young and valiant Filipino general known for his bravery and leadership during the Philippine-American War. The account, possibly narrated by an eyewitness, Richard Henry Little, could provide a detailed description of this event that leads to Del Pilar's demise. Del Pilar's death, often portrayed as a symbol of Filipino heroism and sacrifice, holds significant historical importance in the context to the war against American forces. Understanding the details of his final moments as recounted by an eyewitness like Richard Henry Little can offer a insightful perspective on the sacrifices made by Filipino patriots in the struggle for independence. And next is the reading number 43, proclamation issued by Emilio Aguinaldo on April 19, 1899, after he had taken his oath of allegiance to the United States. Emilio Aguinaldo, the first president of the Philippines on April 19, 1899, following his controversial decision to take an oath of allegiance to the United States. Aguinaldo, a central figure in the Philippine Revolution and the early years of Philippine independence, faced complex political circumstances and strategic challenges during the Philippine-American War. The proclamation could shed light on Aguinaldo's rationale for his action, the implication of his allegiance to the United States, and the political dynamics at play during that critical juncture in the Philippine history. Aguinaldo's shifting alliances and decisions during this period continue to be subjects of historical debate and making this proclamation a significant document in understanding the complexities of the Philippine struggle for independence. Second is a review of the Philippine-U.S. relations from 1907 to the present. During the transition from military government of civil government in the Philippines under American rule, there are changes occurred. Military rule persisted in certain areas until 1902 and the Mindanao until 1914, indicating a phased transition from a military to a civil administration. The Philippine Commission served as the legislative body during this period, with the first secretaries of departments also acting as commissioners, showcasing a centralized governance structure. Under American rule, Filipinos experienced enhanced freedom, recognition, and involvement compared to the restrictive policies of the former Spanish colonial regime. This shift towards a more inclusive governance model allowed for greater participation and representation of Filipinos in the administrative processes. William H. Taft Governance Emphasis. William H. Taft, who served as Governor-General of the Philippines, prioritized governance that benefited Filipinos. He focused on initiatives such as land purchase and conservation, aiming to improve the lives of the Filipino population and promote sustainable practices in the region. Francis, it, Francis Burton Harrison's autonomy increased. Under the governance of Francis Burton Harrison, Filipino autonomy was enhanced and efforts were made to Philippinize the civil service. This move towards greater Filipino representation in the civil service aimed to empower locals and increase their participation in administrative rules. Jones Law of 1916. The Jones Law enacted in 1916 was a significant milestone in the Philippine-U.S. relations. This law paved the way of eventual independence by providing a framework for self-governance. It established a bicameral legislature in the Philippines, setting the stage for increased autonomy and self-determination for the Filipino people. And Filipinos collaborated with the United States during World War I, showcasing their willingness to work alongside their American counterparts in times of conflict. This cooperation demonstrated a shared commitment to common goals and highlighted the strong ties between the two nations during challenges periods. Next, the 2.1 Philippine-U.S. relations from military government to civil government. Reading number 44 on the early American teachers and education in the Philippines. American teachers shaping the educational landscape of the Philippines. They were instrumental in introducing new teaching methods, curriculum reforms, and educational practices that aim to modernize and improve the educational system in the country. The presence of American teachers had a significant impact on Filipino education, bringing in new ideas, pedagogical approaches, the educational standards. Their influence helped lay the foundation for a more structured and progressive educational system in the Philippines. The engagement of early American teachers in the Philippines facilitated a cultural exchange between the two nations. It allowed for the sharing of knowledge, teaching practices, and educational philosophies, enriching the educational experience for both Filipino and American educators. The contributions of early American teachers left a lasting legacy in the Philippines educational system. Their efforts in promoting literacy, critical thinking, and modern educational practices helped shape the future of education in the country and set the stage for further advancement in teaching and learning. Japanese bombings ravaged Philippine cities, prompting President Quezon's steadfast leadership and rallying cry for resistance. The fall of Bataan in 1942 led to the harrowing Bataan Death March, where Filipino and American soldiers endured unspeakable atrocities at the hands of their captors. The establishment of the Second Philippine Republic under Japanese influence underscored the complexities faced by the Filipino people. However, the tide turned with the liberation of Manila in 1945, symbolizing a beacon of hope and the eventual dissolution of the puppet government. Next is the 2.1 Philippine-U.S. relation from military government to civil government. Reading number 45, Bataan has fallen. To summarize it, Bataan fell to Japanese forces on April 9, 1942. The fall of Bataan was a important or significant moment during the war. It marks the surrender of Filipino and American troops after a valiant defense. The capture of Bataan led to the infamous Bataan Death March, where prisoners endured brutal treatment, emphasizing the sacrifices and the hardship faced by soldiers during the conflict. Next is the reading number 46. Our faith in America is undaunted. It reflects the resilience and unwavering belief in America's support and commitment during challenging times. Despite setbacks like the fall of Bataan, the phrase "Our faith in America is undaunted" could signify the enduring trust and hope in American assistance and partnership, highlighting the strong bond between the Philippines and the United States during time of adversity. And next is the reading number 47. Remember the Philippines. Remember the Philippines' enduring spirit and resilience of the Filipino people during this time of struggle. It encapsulates the call to honor and commemorate the sacrifices, bravery, and patriotism of Filipino in defense of their country. It could also signify the importance of preserving the memory of the Philippine history, struggles, and triumphs as a source of inspiration and national pride.